Welcome to the Four Quarters Podcast with Curtis Branch and Conley Phipps, Oklahoma's premier high school sports podcast, brought to you by Bravado Wireless.
Welcome back to Four Quarters Podcast with Curtis II, and we're joined today by the one, the only, Rod Thompson. Thanks for coming and being a part of our program tonight.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. Nice setup we got here. Nothing about this. I mean, y'all been hiding on me. Cleveland boys and hid on me and hiding.
Well, BranchCom Studios 101 right here.
Yes.
Conley and I don't travel well, so we had the Bravado boys come in and help us with the studio setup here tonight.
Yeah.
So
Bravado doing big things, getting a lot of airtime for them kids out there. Y'all did my Bigs Demons, a couple of times.
Had them in the finals of the Fort Gibson Classic.
Appreciate that. I was able to watch. I was on the road, so really good to get out and be able. Bravado doing a good job of, getting some TV time and web time for a lot of these young kids.
That one tournament we coached 4 state finalists and 2 state champions. In that tournament. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. Oklahoma Union boys, who ended up 5th in the tournament, got upset by Hilldale first round. Bags, who lost a tough one in the finals. They didn't win 3 gold balls like Rod Thompson.
3 gold balls. Come on,
now you won 3, right?
Yeah.
You should have won.
Should have won 4.
Should have won 4. What happened in that one?
I had a fractured ankle.
Okay.
Kerry Dale, Kendall's. He was out. He got sick, and another one of our good players, Tony Brown, had a big ankle sprain.
Now, what year was that? What grade was that?
Sophomore. So my freshman year, we won it. We beat Haskell. I always say to kind of the claim to fame of our team, my freshman year, I was able to start as a freshman. I went to TU. Jerome Vaden went to Oregon State. Pooh went to TU, of course. Junior Whitaker went to Northwest Louisiana. And Donald Carter, who was very good, and could have went to some Division I schools, ended up going to junior college at Eastern and then going up to Southwestern and becoming the all-time leading scorer. I think somebody broke his record. But for a small school, I graduated with 42. To have, a starting 5 like that was pretty good.
I remember those teams.
Yeah.
I remember those teams. Henry Rowland, great coach. Yeah, you guys were phenomenal.
Did you have the dome rocking back in those days?
Didn't have no dome. We built it, Coach.
Really?
Didn't have the dome.
The man that built the dome.
We were laying the mortar down right there. But great story real quick about Biggs at 3 state championships, Henry Rowland. Great coach. And, boy, I got kind of emotional probably about 2 weeks ago. And with everything going on, it can be a wait sometime. And I'm driving, just went past your house, and I'm driving. I look up, and I'm trying to get hip to Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And his wife left a message, put a message out there. Well, when I was at TU, my first NCAA tournament, back then they give you a watch. And I gave my watch to Coach Rowland. And, of course, he passed away probably 3-4 years ago, I think. And I gave him the watch, and his wife put a message on Facebook and said, Rod, call me so I can meet with you in Tulsa. She said Henry left strict guidelines that I get this watch back to you so you could give it to Bryce. And boy, I had a rough day, and I kind of pulled over and broke down. So that was good.
That's
so
a great story.
That was really good, and I needed that at the time. So you had some great memories of Biggs.
Yeah, Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yes,
wow, what a story! It's powerful.
Yeah,
it's powerful.
Yeah.
So TU, you had unique privilege. You went to NEO for a year.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that,
and I do.
Yes,
I know my lore, done my homework. 3-year player at TU.
Mm-hmm.
You had how many different coaches?
Man, pull out a calculator. Well, when I always tell people this story. When I was coming out of high school, I didn't have a very good tournament of champions, and I think the scholarship was between me and another kid from Houston. Well, mysteriously, an AAU game broke out with just my team and his team here in Tulsa, and Coach Smith was there watching, and the kid was better. I mean, he was faster, he was stronger, he was more verbal, he was, led the team more, and I knew that and understood that. And so by the time we got done a full day of scrimmaging, I walked out knowing that I wasn't going to get the scholarship, and of course he committed and signed, and so I was pretty devastated. But I always say that I had parents that just kind of work and figure it out. Nowadays it's you kind of slept on, but I knew that he was better at the time. And so I remember going home, and so I decided that I was going to go to OBU. Bob Hoffman was coaching there. They flew me down on a visit from Okmulgee International Airport, if you can call it that, to Shawnee, to OBU. Yeah. Was going to go there in about a week and a half before I was going to commit or sign. My counselor came and said, "Hey, man, your grades are great. You have great test scores. You can go to junior college for a year, and you can go, 3 years to school." And I'm like, really? I didn't know. And so ended up going to NEO, working hard. Me and another guy named Mike Jones, who had a great career. We were roommates, and got up every morning at 5, worked out before breakfast check. Lonnie Spencer was a coach who coached over at Rogers and did a great job, and ended up going there and really improved and got better. I knew what I needed to work on, and we worked on that and got better. And it was funny, halfway through the season, coming back to the gym to talk to us was Tubby Smith, who less than 365 days before, chose someone else, and so and it was interesting because they had the kid that was already there that had beat me out. Then his son was a freshman, was going to be a freshman, and so, I said, "Coach, man, you got guys that's ready to play, and the guys that's going to be there. You got to, why would I, And he said, "Well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't need you." And so, long story short, so I was going to come to Tulsa, told him I was coming. They were in an NCAA tournament. They got beat by UMass in the Sweet 16. And
who was on that team?
Marcus Camby? Marcus Camby.
And they lost to
OSU.
Lost to OSU.
Yeah. And so he called me after that game and told me that he was going to Georgia. And that always, stuck out to me. He said he enjoyed recruiting me and, getting to know me, but he wanted to let me know before the media came out. And so then I had a decision to make, and everybody who thought that they were going to get the Tulsa job was calling me because I was the guy that was going to go there. And so, got to meet some great coaches, through that. And I wanted to go to Tulsa, and I'm going to Tulsa. So I didn't play for Tubby Smith, but then played 2 years for Steve Robinson and 1 year for Bill Self.
Hey, real quick, let's shut the door. So we got the full backdrop of the Booker T state championship thing on there.
There we go.
They can edit that out. So right, surely. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll keep going. We gotta pay homage to Booker T.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Johnny Dash. So since we pointed at him, Jay Dash is behind the camera. Jay Dash, Bravado Wireless.
He's the best looking guy in the room.
Johnny Dash Media. You guys want a highlight video done if you're listening to this? High school kids. He's the man. Jay Dash. Look him up on Twitter.
We will talk about him and AAU basketball and the effect of video, and guys like him and how they've affected recruiting and different things like that. We'll get into that a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit of a couple of Steve Robinson stories, and then a couple of your memories of playing for Coach Self. And
Coach Rob was. He was, and he'll say this now, he came from Kansas, and one of the biggest gripes that some of us had, that everything was like Kansas. We had uniforms like Kansas. We won the Missouri Valley. It was like Kansas, but he was from Kansas. He coached with Roy Williams and, was very successful. And I thought he came in, I give him a hard time because when he came in, he said, "Hey, I'm coming here new, you're coming here new, let's go. And, let's be great together." And then after 2 years, he left. I say, "Yeah, so you got in here and then you left." And so I end up, enjoyed my time, learned a lot, and he'll tell you, he was a new coach, so he was learning on the fly. He said a lot of stuff that he, did different when he got to his next stop. A lot of pressures coming in, expectation to win, and so
because he inherited a great team.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
A lot of success.
A lot of success. Had been to 2 NCAA tournaments, and so we were fortunate. We were in the Valley, and so went and I can't remember where we finished in the league, but ended up winning the tournament in St. Louis. And so he was was a very good coach, and and pushed us really hard. And so we had some success both years. Went to the tournament both years. First year, winning the Valley, we ended up losing to Louisville in Milwaukee. But had Dewan Weedy was really good. I can still see him making shots over me now. Could really play. But we had a lead. I want to say we was up 8 or 9 with a minute left and 2 minutes left, and end up losing. But I had a controversial play in that game. I dribbled down, up and under, and stepped through, and they called a travel. And nobody, of course, nobody on our team at Tulsa thought it was a travel. But years passed, and years later, probably about 10 years ago, I talked to Coach Rob, and he told me that play is viewed by the NCAA and by the officials, coaches, when they do seminars to say, is this a walk or not? And it wasn't a walk, and would have won us a game. But that's a.
Because you shot it before you put your pivot foot down, didn't you?
Shot it, coach. This is what I do. I've been doing that a long time. So we end up that year end up losing against them, and then the next year we came, and at the time I think we were the highest seed in the tournament close to the highest seed in the tournament because I think Nolan had a higher seed, but I'll never forget, we were a 5 seed. We played 12 in Kansas City. We played Boston University. We had transitioned to the WAC tournament then. The WAC conference. Yeah. It was a great conference.
UNLV, New Mexico.
Utah, TCU. Some great players. I think you may have been at TCU.
Yeah, I coached your boy
Mike Jones. Malcolm Johnson.
Yeah.
And so we transitioned to that and played well in that. Got a 5 seed. That year we were that year we were the first state school to beat all of the state schools in one season.
Right.
So we beat OU, OSU, and ORU. Kind of like my highlight of that season was we got beat in the semifinals of the preseason NIT. Got beat by Duke, I think by 4 at Madison Square Garden. So I always thought that was cool to be able to play at Madison Square Garden and to see all the people, the Muhammad Ali and all that was there. And I always tell a funny story before when we was, in the preseason IT, the night before the semifinal start, they have a big dinner where all the players and coaches, people get up and speak. And so we're all sitting there and all the players are around. So we're talking to Duke players. It was in the Final Four was us, Indiana, Duke, and Evansville, who was in the Valley at the time. So we were familiar with them. And so they were all asking, we're talking. They say, man, where you from? And I'm Tulsa, And so they asked me, like, where you from? I was like, I'm from Biggs, And somebody on the team was like, man, just say you from Tulsa. They don't know where Biggs is, They don't know where Biggs is. So the guy was like, Biggs, where is it? I said, yeah, I'm from Biggs. I say, man, it's about 25, 30 minutes south of Tulsa. And the guy says, man, that must be really country there, man. He said, man, I bet y'all got chickens and horses and everything in the front yard. I say, no, we keep them in the back. But it was one of those deals where, that was one of the highlights of, I think of my career. And then, again, get them to be a 5 seed. We beat Boston University in Kansas City at Kemper Arena, which is no longer there. But and then we lost a controversial game to Clemson. And, Shea Seals was our best player, and, really good player. But, got in foul trouble. Some phantom fouls that you look back that was just unbelievable. And we wasn't the same team without him being on the court. He in the times that he didn't draw attention, I was able to score and really feed off him. But, he was such a great player. And man, he fouled out. We fought hard as we could, and he fouled out early. I think he finished with 2 points. And I really think that game really affected him when it came to getting drafted. And, it was some unbelievable calls that was made on there. Rick Barnes was coaching that team, right. At the time. And they had, Terrell McIntyre, Greg Butner, who played in the league. And so we got beat that year. So some very good teams we had for those 2 years, very tradition rich, had a lot of local guys playing, on those teams. So, those first 2 years was really good. And I really always wanted to go to Tulsa. I always tell people when I was in the 7th grade, they can't do that now, but the team came down. I believe J.D. Barnett was coaching, and Jamal West and some other guys on the team. And I remember coming to Beggs, they did like a little camp, a little one-day camp, and I later found out they let me win the shooting competition, but I won the competition and thought it was great. And me and Pooh was the guys that were shooting. We was young. I mean, and lo and behold, we didn't know we'd be going to Tulsa, but that was something that always stuck out to me, and I always, kind of wanted to go. So when I had the opportunity to be able to go and play, I mean, and I tell people, I tell young people now, like, it wasn't like I had all these Division I's beating down my door. I mean, I had like Montana State or somebody that no disrespect to Montana State, but I wasn't going to go that far away from home, and I always wanted to go to Tulsa. So I had that opportunity, and so, man, it really changed my life, and, I'm blessed because I've, of course, met my wife and, 2 kids and all that kind of stuff. So those first 2 years was really good, and Coach Robinson was a good coach. He ended up leaving, going to Florida State.
Right, and then Coach Self comes over from ORU, who you had beaten a couple times with in the Mayor's Cup.
Yes, and he had beat us. I tell people we were ranked, man, don't quote me, I want to say 17. We were ranked like 17, and we ended up losing to ORU, and they had a great team.
Was that the Nate Bynum shot?
No, Nate was after me.
That's when you were there?
That was
but they had Tim Gill, Rocky Walls, Earl McClellan.
They were good.
What's my man that coached at Lincoln?
Chad Wilkes.
Chad Wilkes. I mean, they were a very good team.
Blake Moses.
Yeah, Big Blake. And so we always played, pick up and everything together. Really good team, and I'll never forget. That was the hardest. I always tell kids, you don't want to lose over Christmas break, and that game was kind of right there. And I always tell the story. We were in the rankings, and once we lost that, we never got back in there. I mean, it knocked us out, and it was a great game, and they put it on us pretty good. And Earl McClellan had an unbelievable game. Tim always played great. And I'll never forget that after that game, we had like 1 or 2 days off. We came back to practice, and everybody had the newspaper article that was in everybody's locker from the game. And we had to carry it around in our pocket anytime a coach or somebody saw us when what happened in practice. We need to have that with us. And of course, a couple of guys didn't have it with them, and we had to get on the line and run. And, I mean, it was a tough deal. But Coach Self had been there, had done a good job. He had actually recruited me and did an in-home visit. Him and Barry Henson came to Beggs to try to get me to come to ORU. And
they meet you at Coleman's?
No, they didn't meet me at Coleman's. Didn't meet me at the Beggs Drive-In either. But he, we kind of went back because my freshman year, that freshman team I was telling you about at Beggs, we won the state championship over Marlo White, who ended up playing in New Mexico. Was a very good player. Punky Clay, they had a very good team too. And Coach Self was at OSU then, and I was a freshman. I scored the first 8 points of the game, played really well, and right after that, we kind of formed a relationship when he was at OSU. So kind of knew him then, then recruited me to ORU, and then finally Coach Robinson leaves, and I'll never forget, Coach Self comes, he gets the job, and he said, "Thompson, you can't run from me now," And so, I was able to play the senior, and we had a good team. We lost a lot. Of course, Shea was gone. I led the team in scoring that year. We still had Michael Ruffin, Coley, and man, we just had a year where it was tough. Eric Coley lost his mom. Johnny Gendron had concussions. I mean, it was a tough year. We finished 19-12. Got beat in the semifinals of the WAC tournament. Probably would have won that game. Probably would have had a chance to get in. But that league was tough that year. I mean, you had, Mike Jones and Malcolm at TCU. You had Keely Smith and Anthony Carter at Hawaii. You had the great players in New Mexico. You had Utah with Andre Miller, Michael Doliak, which we call Michael Dolashak. We had UNLV was very good with Keon Clark, I think that's his name. But In other words, we didn't get in. I think about 4 teams got in, and the other ones got the NIT.
Fresno State had good.
Fresno State. I mean, you had Tarek, Rayford Alston, Chris Herron. I mean, so very good.
A lot of people don't know Chris Herron, but Chris Herron could play.
He could play. Look him up. And so we end up going 19-12, and so we didn't get any postseason play. And I remember just just thinking, because you get to the point, and everybody wants to be a pro. Everybody wants to go play, and I remember we didn't get to go in the NCAA tournament. We didn't even get to go in the NCAA tournament, and and what we ended up doing was we were done, and so I knew I wasn't a NBA player, but got to play a little bit overseas briefly and some semi-pro stuff. But that was a tough year because we were so close, and you're so used to having that success. Right. those 2 years before, and definitely as a senior, you want to go out and be able to go and do those kind of things. So it makes a big difference.
Gotcha. So one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because of your success as an AAU coach, as a trainer, the things you've seen. We started the AAU season. We really lost an AAU season last year. And, along the way with Bravado, there's a lot of kids we've run into, like, how do we play AAU basketball? How do we get seen? How do we get noticed? And so we want to visit a little bit about that, starting a PWP, I think, which was formed by you and
Sean
Lee.
Williams.
Oh,
Sean Williams, yeah.
Okay.
And Lee joined us 2 years later. So we started PWP. We mostly did training. So, we would train a lot of the guys. And so then everybody came in and said, hey, why don't you guys do teams? We started teams. One of our first teams with Keaton Page, Rodney Clark, Ken Holman, all those guys, and we started teams. So we transitioned from the training to the to the teams, and started getting out, hitting AAU tournaments, and then we just started getting more teams and transitioning to more teams, and really liked it. Really hurt the side as far as lessons, because you have the teams, and so we went from training everybody's team, your team, to now having our own team. So we were kind of looked at as a competitor, right? I'm gonna train your kid, but your kid gonna come play with me because they like the training, and so so that's when we started. First United Methodist, and I tell people this, when we started the lessons, we felt like that's what God was leading us to do, and I'll never forget, we did it a couple locations, and me and Sean Williams, we were sitting in a driveway, and we got done doing lessons, and we had $21 to split. I just got married, he had just got married, and I remember saying, well, Lord, if this is what you want us to do, I don't know how you're gonna do it. And so we just began to grow, and to be able to expand, and First United Methodist was the last place. It was going to be the last straw that we went, because we just couldn't afford to do it, with having young families, and so we walked in and we saw the facility, and Sean was like, oh man, no, I mean, we know this is going to be too high. And we were like, well, let's just go talk to him, and went upstairs, talked to him. They said, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for. And so we started, I think it was 99, 2000. We've been there since, and so have been going strong with the teams, and I'm transitioning back to the lessons and helping, and not to get off your question, but we just last year end up merging with Team Griffin, and that whole relationship spurred because I would train Taylor Griffin in the summer. His wife Marika is from here, her family's from here. She went right across the street to Victory Christian, and when she was young, she used to come to lessons. And so he would come here for the summer, and see her, and everybody's asking, well, who should I work out with? And I started training him. So we had a relationship, for a long time. It just felt like it was a good time to try to merge together, try to, kind of help and unify the state, try to help kids, and so that's where we are as far as that. But yeah, PWP been around, playing with purpose since '99. Me and Sean Williams started it. 2 years later, Lee Medbury was just finishing up playing NBA. He ended up joining us, kind of took over the girls' side because he had his daughters playing. And now he's coaching at ORU, and so we've been really blessed, man. A lot of kids have come through, and just like the Bible says, despise not small beginnings. Nobody knows that, that $7 story. But everybody sees the gym or the ranch or the facilities or the multiple teams. And I tell people all the time, I can be a cheat code for you in a lot of this stuff just because, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning, understanding how to navigate, trying to help kids get, and the biggest thing I will say this is that I think this has been probably the biggest key to success. And I don't know if it helped because we played and kind of had already been kind of in the limelight, and maybe me, I've already been on TV and done television, all that kind of stuff. But I think the biggest thing that you struggle with, in today's is being honest with parents about their kids and their level. And I get both sides of it, because if I'm coaching Kurt's son and I tell Kurt this is his level, this is where he is based on all of my experience, based on me training guys that have played professionally, played everywhere else, multiple college players, this is his level. And then you have another coach is telling him, man, Rod don't know what he's talking about, man. He it's some way better than that, Yeah. And so, it is a healthy balance, but I think one of the biggest successes we've been able to have is that, I've been able to be transparent and tell, exactly what I think based on the experiences that I've had and the number of players that I've been able to coach, and say, this is
and
where
you've been pretty accurate with it.
Yeah, I've been pretty
accurate. Track record.
Knock on glass. Been really accurate. I think what has helped, I've had guys that many haven't projected to be able. I always use Keaton Page. And they're like, oh, he can't play in the Big 12. He can't. One is he got an opportunity. You got to be able to get an opportunity. I think it helped that he had, Sean and Travis, that saw him, and maybe games a lot similar. But I always felt like, I think people lose track of it, because it's I always say this. It's like when somebody says, if I take you and you're a high school kid and I say, man, Kurt is going to be a pro. Oh, man, you're trying to say a pro, man. Man, I seen him in. And we always base that. We look at Kurt playing in high school, and automatically we compare him to playing LeBron James right now. Right. Now, I'm not saying he's a pro right now, but if you go, always say in the book coming, I always say study the beginning. Well, if I look at Kurt and see what Kurt was doing as a sophomore,
I'm a poor example in this. But I get your
but if I look at a player and say he was doing this as a sophomore, what was Chris Paul or Bradley Beal? What were they doing, and what were their movements at that same time? To be able to look at that, and we don't do it like that. And I think it's the same way when it comes to college. I'm fortunate to work a lot of guys out and see the same kind of movements, where they were, and how it projects. And so, I think that was one of the biggest deals that were able, to be able to kind of give me an advantage, because I had these. I didn't just see these guys; I had them in the gym. Right. And so I had guys before them that were able to go on and play, and so I think that allowed me to be able to be, pretty accurate as far as, saying the level of kids and where they are, and those guys being able to have success. But the bottom line of it is, it's hard work and continue to compete. But you got to have an opportunity and a chance.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that, I don't remember a lot of – I didn't follow recruiting when Keaton got recruited, but I'd seen him play, and, he's roughly my height. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there thinking, a guy like that – can he play at that level? But to your point, I remember coming back. I think, Conley, you were recruiting for ORU back then, and he had a weekend. He had an opportunity. He performed at a high level on a big stage against some kids.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people, miss, is sometimes you're going to get that opportunity, and how do you perform? And he took advantage of that opportunity.
He did. And then you have to look at it like this. You made a great point. Who was he competing against? See, we always look, if you said Keaton Page, just to use him in the 10th grade, and you said Keaton Page, oh, man, he can play Big 12 basketball or whatever, we always taking him as a sophomore playing against those guys. Yeah. But when we went on the road and played, he was playing against guys that were going to be playing at that level. So I saw him, I coached him when he got 28-6 against DeMar DeRozan.
Right.
He played for Master P and, Lil Romeo. I didn't watch him get, 30 against Ronaldo Sidney, who was regarded as one of the top players, with the same guys that were going to transition just like him to go play in college. And so when you view it from that, I think you always look at who you're competing against. It is a big difference. And I say this all the time. I'm a small school guy. right? So I had seasons where most of the time were the games that we lost. Like I had one season, we were 27-2. Both losses came at the Tournament of Champions. Why you think we lost the Tournament of Champions? We were playing 6A schools.
Right.
And so we could compete with the first 5, but when it came 6 through 9,
right.
it was a difference. So all my losses came usually at the Tournament of Champions against bigger schools. You know, we would be naive to think that it isn't different. The talent level is different. And I say that as a small school guy. Now, if you take a guy who's a small school guy and he could be a great player, you put him on the 6A team, he still may be the best player on the 6A team or 5A team. But we're fooling ourselves to think that if we take a small school, you know, compared to bigger schools, it's just the numbers. The numbers make a big difference.
Right. Oh yeah.
Numbers make a big difference. But that's how you kind of gauge and look at the talent level, and just kind of see where they project, kind of who they're playing against, and how they're able to play against those kids.
Yeah, I had an argument with a dear friend last week. We were talking about Bryce, and he's like, he can't play in the NBA, and I said, what are you basing that on? He said, well, look at the NBA, and I said, that's the worst you're not comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
And, you know, from my standpoint, you look at where was he when he was a sophomore, and I look at where was Zoe at when he was a sophomore, where was Shake at when he was a sophomore. And you look at, you know, Kalina Azubuike, who was a highly high-profile kid here, and he was an Adonis.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, but you see how they move and how they're, you know, you can get comparisons like that. And I tell a lot of kids, and I think you guys both, I know I learned this from Conley, but it's really important, if you want to be a good player, go watch good players.
You have to. I was talking to a group of kids the other day. You'd be surprised that it's kids right now. I could go to Cleveland right now and probably ask most of those kids who's the best player ever play here, and they wouldn't know.
Right.
No, they wouldn't.
I had a group of kids yesterday that went to Union, Jinx, every school around, and I said, tell me who the best player is that ever played at your high school. Clueless. Don't know. So how can you compare?
Right.
Back to what you were saying, and this is what we do a lot of times with when you talk about if guys can play in the league. We do the same thing with college. Brady Manning going to North Carolina. You know how many people tell me, oh, man, I can't play at North Carolina, man. I can't play. How do you know? You don't even know who's on North Carolina's roster.
Don't know who's on the roster. Don't know the style they're going to play. Don't know what role they're going to have.
You have no. But oftentimes, because we are visual, what we see the most of, we think our kids can. Oh, no, I can't. North Carolina? You sure North Carolina good? You sure? And not knowing that half the. And I'll use Bryce. I remember you. Man, North Carolina. Well, little do they know that every person that was at North Carolina, Bryce competed against consistently on a regular basis in the summer.
Right.
You know, but oftentimes that's what you get. And Brady Manning was the latest. Like, man, you really think he can play there? Well, what make you think he can't play there?
Yeah.
You know, but it is what you see and what you're familiar with, because we are. Most of the time, we go to schools regional. You know, nobody would have a question that Brady can play at OU.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on who's there at the time. So, like I tell Bryce and I tell other players, that's the part that comes with the plate. You know, it comes with the plate. But when you're able to look and able to view, like I tell young players all the time. I had a parent the other day tell me that you know, I know my son can play. They can play at TU or RU. And I said, well, who's on the roster? Who's on the roster? I don't know. I don't know who on the roster. You would never go try to apply for a job if you didn't know the job description.
Well, you didn't know who you were competing against.
And you don't know who you're competing against. I said, so take those guys, go to ORU, go to TU, and she used them because they're here, okay?
Right.
Go and look at those guys that's on those rosters. Look at the guys and play the minutes and tell me what they did in high school compared to your kid.
Yeah.
And that gives you a good gauge. Now, different situations are different. Some kids are on teams where, you know, they get to shoot a lot more balls. But listen, you can tell. Like, and also in that same sentence, I had a guy get up who works out, you know, Ricky Bowden, he works out. And I had him stand next to me, and I said, hey, guys, you know, tell me who eats Fruity Pebbles and honey buns at night. Me or Ricky. And I said, say it. They like, you? I said, how do you know? Oh, because I can see it. I said, yeah, you see it.
Yeah.
Same thing we do. You can see it. but you have to be able to make that comparison.
Right.
See, they can't make that comparison with the kids in North Carolina to say Brady Manning can't play there.
Right.
We've seen them. I've seen them. Yeah, he can play there. They wasn't begging. Why do you think they asked him to play?
They wouldn't
ask him to come. These guys just ain't saying, hey, come play if you don't think you can come play. Right. It doesn't work like that. So that's something I think that's part of the education process that I'm wanting to lean more towards as we get done and Bryce gets his situation squared away, that leaning towards more with parents is just that education side of what coach is looking for, how you go about it, and how you can honestly make evaluation. I always say this. I said one study at the beginning, but I also say that with all my experience, I said parents would look at it. If they would view basketball and athletics the same way they view the real world, it'd be in a lot better place.
Right.
You're not going to go, and I'll just use me, and I've been doing it a long time. I said, if I was a lawyer, nobody would question what I said. You write the check.
Yeah.
You know, but oftentimes, and not just me and other guys who've been doing it a long time, who have no dog in the fight. If they were a lawyer or a doctor, you would say go do the surgery. I'm in medical sales, and I said, why you want to go this guy? Well, he's done 1 million of these surgeries. That's why you ain't gonna go with the guy that just started.
Right.
But we don't take that same approach when it comes to athletics, and I think sometimes that's where parents miss it. You can get an honest assessment where you are. I told a kid the other day, I said, and parents, I said, listen, if you allow me to tell you where you are, I have a better chance of getting you to where you want to go. Right. It's not a death sentence. Parents and kids take it as a death sentence.
Yep.
Right. Coaches hating on me. No. I want you to understand who. I always say this: people struggling right now with relationships, jobs, because they don't know who they are. I said, so if I can explain who you are, now you know who that. Now let's work to who you want to become.
Right.
So now we can go to work. I always tell this story, and I think it rings volumes. When Bryce was at, if you're on the circuit, you always want to go to Steph Curry camp. The best guards go to Steph Curry camp. And so Bryce's sophomore year, junior, he didn't get invited. And so you won't believe the number of people that called me within the Under Armour association, like, man, they hating on Bryce, man. He should have been in it. And Bryce did. He had a great summer. But when I sit down and talk to Bryce, I said, now let's sit down and evaluate the 4 other guys in your class that were invited. Anthony Edwards, who was the number 1 pick.
He's pretty good.
Nico Mannion's in NBA right now. RJ Hampton's in NBA right now. And Jalen Suggs, who's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 underclassmen who were invited. Guess what, Bryce? They were better. Now. They were better. This is why. They're better. But let's look at intangibles. They were a little bit older. Right. They was in the same class. So this is what they do that you don't. So now let's work towards that. Right. And now was able to go and work towards that. Next year, you get invited to Steph Curry camp. You get invited to USA Basketball, top 5 performing. But listen, if that evaluation and sitting down and being honest about where he was, it probably could have affected his work ethic, to get where he wanted to get. Right. Everybody's not sleeping. Everybody's not hating on you.
Right.
We know what we see, and I know what I see. But I knew the only way for him to get better is to say, listen, this is what they do different, and you got to work on that.
Well, and part of projections in my argument with my friend was part of the projection is what kind of person are they? Mm-hmm. What kind of work ethic do they have? What kind of strides do they take to get better?
What's their support system?
What's their support system, and how good is their surroundings? Because that's a tremendous predictor of success in life, in basketball, and everything else. So I'm going to shift this a little bit. I think you kind of answered the question, and really I think both of you could chime in on this. You both had the advantage of being – I'm a non-D1 player. I think that's pretty obvious. You guys were both Division I players. You both understand the process. I had a parent call me last week and said, I got invited to play on this AAU team. We're going on this circuit. Now I've got to enroll with the NCAA Clearinghouse, got to have a number. Help parents. I think 2 questions I want you both to answer. How early do you start AAU? And then how early do you worry about the recruiting process?
You want to go first, Coach? You?
I'll go first. I think that's an interesting question. I know that Trey and Bryce both started playing as much as they could play when they were kindergarten, first grade. Right. And my dad, who's old school, he said, hey, they're playing too much. They need to learn how to dribble and pass, and you know, but because it's different. Right. But I think the climate is now, you know, you for sure got to start playing at an early age.
Yes.
Right. Or you're going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to catch up unless you're 7 foot tall or you're
freak athlete.
You know. But I do think it is very important when you start playing that age that somebody is with you that knows what they're doing to get you on the right path.
Yes.
You know, and that's why, you know, I was fortunate that when I wasn't with Trey, Rod was, and just what a great. I talk to Trey about this all the time. You know how lucky we were to have PWP here and Rod and all Rod did for Trey when I wasn't coaching him. Because what I did wrong, Rod was doing right, you know. Yeah. And but I think that a kid's got to get in a great situation. I mean, there can be damage done. You go to the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, there's going to be damage done.
Okay, so to that point, I'm a parent. My kids haven't played for PWP. My kids might not be good enough to play for PWP. What is a good situation? And I would challenge you with this thought, is that I think if it's a bad situation, this is the advice I gave you guys, tell me if I'm wrong. If it's a bad situation, it doesn't make it right to go play for them.
I think if it's a bad situation, you know it's a bad situation, you're better off going down and getting some lessons.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I know. You know, it's just an advantage. It's just an advantage most of the time being a coach's kid and coming from having somebody in the house that knows what they're doing. Lee told me this story a long time ago. He was telling me about Talia. Talia was just a young kid. I mean, this is probably, I took it as second, third elementary school player. And, you know, her last name's Mayberry. Her dad's Lee Mayberry. So she had a chance to go play on this huge AAU team that traveled nationally at that age. Okay? So she gets on the team. At least tell me this story. I'm not making this up. She's not good enough to play. She's not good. She couldn't play.
She wasn't.
She wasn't playing at all, but she's on the team everybody wanted to play on.
Right, yeah.
And so Lee's like, I don't think this is the way to do it. So you know what I did? Pulled her off that team. I put a team together, and he agreed. Talia shouldn't have been playing. She wasn't very good. And we put a team together. We weren't any good, but those girls played all the time and played the right way. And, of course, you know, she's a Hall of Famer at Tulsa and a you know, professional. And
great story to that. You know, I was right there while that was going on, and we sit down and tried to figure out because it wasn't just that she wasn't playing. She was not good enough to play.
Yeah. Right. Which is why Lee said,
yeah, and I think you have that advantage to be able to know, you know, he didn't go race Kane with the coach. You know, she was not as good as those girls. They were bigger, they were physical. So we get the little team together, and no lie, this is so funny. We used to go into the game playing some of those teams, and that team she used to be on, and we say as coaches, let's see if we can keep it under 25.
Yeah,
they would beat our brains out, you know, but she continued to get better and better and better, and was in a situation where she was able to get better, she was able to improve. I always use this, just like I was telling somebody this about Bryce, and everybody like, oh, well, man, you need to play up, you need to play this. And then I said, in different situations, because if you're honest, like Bryce, like when he was younger, like he really wasn't good enough to play up and play on a national level all the time because it was so much more physical. Now, he could play because he could shoot it, but he wasn't going to get the development as far as dribbling it. Right. Because it was so physical against those guys.
He couldn't bring off his dribble.
Yeah, he get knocked. So he was losing valuable time being able to dribble and learn how to play, for the cost of everybody saying you playing up. You playing up. I think there's a couple of things, how early. I think you have to start early. I'm with Conley on that. You have to start early.
8, 10?
Oh, yeah.
You better be started by then.
Yeah, you better be started by then.
And let's clarify. If you want to be a Division I player, if you want your kid has the ability, has the desire, and which is a hard thing. My kids, one of my 10-year-old right now wants to be a fireman. And that may change in 2 weeks, and so you've got to have a balance there. But let's assume that's their goal. You're kind of driven, help them get there and push them towards that, and really hope that they end up wanting to do that. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But so 10 years old. Tell me what that looks.
No. You got to start early.
Okay.
You got to start
skills.
Because
when I look at 8 and under, 7 and under YMCA basketball, they're tucking and running. They're playing football and hoping to.
Yeah.
So, do you spend time?
It's both. You need to play and you need the skill.
Okay.
Big difference. A lot of people are playing with no skill. So
that's what I see a lot.
You want to be able to have both. And we live in a world now where you can go play a tournament every single weekend. When we first started, you may play twice a week. Twice a month. But we were skilling and drilling the whole time. A lot of times, because you have so many teams now and being in the right place, you want to go play, but that can't be all you do. You have to be. We were in the gym every day. Yeah. They were dropped off every day doing lessons. Only an hour, but every day you were getting it in. And so when you look at, you have to start early. And one thing you do is, especially by 10, you got to be looking and seeing where you are based on everybody else.
10, what is that? That's 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah. You got to be able to. You become recruitable at 7th grade.
Right.
You're recruitable at 7th grade.
Planning a weekend away in your camper? Take your Bravado Wireless home internet with you. Right now, our most popular internet plan has been chopped. While other internet providers are stuck at home with all of those wires and your obnoxious neighbor, Hank, you are free to take your wireless router to your home away from home. Visit us at bravadowireless.com to find a store near you. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
And so I remember we used to go to John Lucas camp, and not so much that I wanted Bryce to go to John Lucas camp or different camps to be like, I go to John Lucas. I was trying to see what the competition was around the country.
Right.
And I wanted him to be able to see that.
It was a litmus test.
Yeah. And so you see, sure. But I think that you have more teams, you have more people playing. It's a tournament every single weekend. But I think it's the skill stuff that's missing now. It's the rep. I always say simple but important. You have, everybody does lessons now. Everybody does. And I'm not, there's a lot of good trainers out there. But you have to know why you are working. That's a big difference. You have to know what situations you're going to be in. I always said I want to be able to put people in positions that I know as much as I can that they would be into the game. I can teach you how to play horse, but we want this to transition to the game. So I may get in trouble. Like I don't think I haven't seen anybody in the game dribbling, holding a cone in their hand. Not saying that's bad, but I want to be able to get it as close to what it is that they're going to do in the game.
Right.
Now, I probably had an advantage that because I'm around the college coaches. I know what guys are looking for. I know those different kind of things that you have to do, and that's what you have to go and you have to work on, and you have to be playing, and then you got to go back and work. I remember we used to do games, and Conley would tell you this. We used to do games, and because it's enough games and so many teams, you can really use it as a way to get better. I used to tell Bryce in some games he could never shoot a 3.
Right.
He would have to work on getting to the basket, or we practice on doing that. Those different kind of things that you have to do to get your game to be able to evolve and get better. But if you're waiting till 12, like you say, unless you're a freak athlete, you're going to have a lot of catching up to do. Gotcha. And that's the part that you and Conley can tell you this. You get to the point where you get to a certain age, and you can say, "Look, he ain't gonna catch up. Too late." And so in finding a good team, back to what you're saying, I think you have to look at the team's purpose and goal.
Well, and I'm gonna speak from a guy that has not been at your guys' level. So, and I think this is a critical conversation for our audience. I think it's an important thing because I get asked this all the time. I mean, I'm not either one of you guys, and I get asked this all the time. What kind of team should I play on? What kind? And I'm just going to tell you, I put my daughter Hannah when she was 6th grade, 7th grade, put her on some teams. She played with Mackenzie. They were never good situations, and she wasn't good enough to get to an elite team.
Yeah,
and so we just stayed home and shopped. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think there are more bad situations out there for parents than there are good situations.
Definitely.
There's no doubt about
it. And so we're really talking two paths here, And so.
But understanding the path is important. When you start getting to 12 and 11, you can really start telling and weeding people out. Like, listen, you're going to get close to 11. Unless you hit a crazy growth spurt,
right.
I think you got to understand the team. What is the path? Like, I give this example, and I won't say names. We had 2 teams, and I'm a softie. I could never say no. I could never cut anybody, so we had multiple teams, right? No. I understand that it's different skill sets, and it's different colleges for different kids. Social media has an impact on this, too, because you have some parents that just want to say, oh, I'm on the main team. I'm on the elite team. Well, you're on the elite team, but you're not playing. Right. And so I'll never forget this. Back when I had 2 teams, I had the team that guys were probably going to be D2, NAIA players, and then we had a team where, you had more of the high-level guys. Well, I had 2 kids that wanted to be on the high-level team. Really would have been the best players on the, if you want to call it, second team. Would have been the best players. No matter what they did on this circuit, they were never going to get offers of anything from the coaches that were watching this team play.
Right.
So could have had 20 in that game, still wasn't going to get nothing. Well, you look up and at the end, because people want to be on social media and say, I'm on the best team. And, like now, everybody plays competitive. Can be. It's too many teams. Play competitive. Yeah. What is competitive? It's 150 teams.
Yeah.
National tournament out at Kiefer.
Yeah. Everybody's competitive. Like
Nationals.
And so when you look at it, those kids who decide to do that, you had the kids on the other team, they end up getting scholarship offers and going to play. And these guys were better, but they wasn't in situations where they were going to be seen by the guys who were going to recruit them. So, one, you got to figure out the path of the team. See, that's why I say, just like in life, we have long-term and short-term goals. But parents don't view it like that when it comes to sports. And so you got to say, okay, what is the path? What am I trying to get out of this? It got to continue to be fun so they can keep doing it. You got to keep drilling and skilling and doing all that kind of stuff. But where is this going? Are we just going to tournaments to say we go? Are we going to try to gauge to see where we are? Because the thing now, guys, I always say that you have teams now, they never want to play their age. Well, a lot of times you don't want to play your age because it's easy to go lose to the team that's older and you say, oh, yeah, we was playing up. We lost. We playing up. No, you want to be able to compete with your age. And be able to get there, but
unless it's not competitive.
Unless it's not competitive,
yeah.
And I think so. You have to continue to look at a path, and then you have to be able to see, okay, what is the long-term goals as far as this? Where are we trying to go? Are they in a good situation? Are they developing the way? Now you may have to ask somebody, do you think if they're developing? Right. And somebody probably knows a coach that will give you an honest assessment. But I think that's the number one mistake that guys make. I mean, and parents make. Picking a good team, you want to be able to play. AAU used to be about development. It used to be about getting you ready for your high school team.
Yeah.
That's why you did it. I mean, back when it was more camps. It was more stuff. It wasn't near the type of tournaments that it is now and all this. I always say this, everybody talks about And this is a good story. Exposure. You got to get exposure. I remember one time a parent coming to me, this is when we first, we got to go to Vegas. Got to go get that exposure. We got to go get that exposure. And I said, your kid is probably going to go locally. Do you think they have a budget to go to Vegas to watch you play? But now, if you want to go, so we get there, and because of this, the kid is all wired up because he thinks he's trying to get a scholarship. He's nerved up. Nobody's having a good time because you got to get out here and get this exposure. When you can look at it, 90% of kids are going to go within their region. It's only a small amount that can go outside the region.
That's true.
Think about the best players in the last couple of years. It's only been a few that's been able to go to North Carolina, and I'm talking about out of high school. Just use the state. It's only been a few that have been able to go and do that, because most of the time, and even the ones that have, they're still going to go within their region. They're still going to go a state or two over. Yeah. They're not going to UCF because coaches really don't recruit like that. And so you have to be able to look at so parents think going to get exposure by spending all your money, working overtime, going to 150 different tournaments, okay?
You're wearing your kids out. You're wearing your
You're wearing yourself out. You're wearing your budget out. You and your wife are into it because you're spending all your money, going. When there's a way that you can be in the midst of all of that, you're really not getting quality skill work. You're not getting better. You're not using it as a gauge. And you start seeing, especially when you start seeing the pressure getting heightened the older they get, and all of a sudden, little Johnny don't want to play no more. Well, you as a parent, you wouldn't work at that job no more if that pressure was like that. Yeah. And so you start dealing with it, but you start figuring out, okay, start maximizing. I can get a lot done right here locally. Hey, now if we want to go out of town, let's go out of town. Let's go have a good time. Go see some stuff. But don't go with the premise of thinking, especially when you're younger, that, okay, if I go out here, I'm finna get this scholarship offer, or because I'm in Vegas, UNLV. It doesn't work like that. And so the clear path is figuring out a path and start developing it and continue. Now, you may have to change teams.
Right.
You may have to change teams because teams grow. The better teams at a young age are the most athletic. They're the biggest and the strongest.
No doubt.
Not the most skilled.
No.
Okay, so little Ricky, who leads the team to champion, well, we can look at him pretty early and say he's gonna be a football player.
Yeah.
He's gonna be backpedaling, doing football. He's gonna be doing something else. And so you have, if it's basketball, you have to be able to lay that plan and understand, okay, this is a plan. And so sometimes you have to change teams, but you want to continue to grow. You want to continue to get better. That when you get to the finish line, you've done not saying you're going to make every decision the right decision, but when you get to that finish line, you've done everything you can to be able to get to the point to give your kid that opportunity to go play a sport he loves, and you as a parent don't have to pay for school. Okay. It's the bottom line. But you can't get that if you won't receive the truth.
Yeah.
So we've established that pride, mostly on the parent side, is a big contributor.
And the pride is ignited by social media because everybody wants to post on social media. They're the best.
Okay, so I want to turn to skills because I think, in my view, this is borne out from history. I mean, there's a few kids that are elite. There's some kids that are kind of Division II, NAIA type of kids. And you got the rest of them. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I would say that if you're not a predictable Division I, Division II kid, there's and I'm talking about where you're at now, not starting out at 6 or 8.
Okay.
Right. So I've given the advice. I had a friend that's his son goes to Bishop Kelly, and he was pretty good as a freshman, pretty good as an 8th player, played some PWP, but he was never really a standout. And he's like, I got to find a team that my kid can stand out on. And I'm like, he goes, I couldn't make the Tulsa Hawks last year or whatever. And I said, then get in the gym and shoot.
Yeah.
Find yourself a trainer. Because if you can't compete at the level that you want to or you think, then it's, in my opinion, my advice to him was it's futile to go spend the money, travel, and set an unfair expectation.
The kid needs to get better.
And the kid needs to get better. So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to give you this great example. You talked about this in training. You've never seen a guy in the court dribbling down the court, holding the cone. I had a girl one time when we were coaching at NOAA, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you the trainer. She was unbelievable. She at 13 years old might be one of the best ball handlers stationary I've ever seen in my life. She could do stuff that I had high school kids that could never. My daughter played D2 for a year. She couldn't do any of the stuff she could do. And the dad was like, she's so great. She's with this trainer. She's this, she's that. And I had this quick little point guard. Couldn't dribble at all, but I'm telling you, she was quick. And he goes, my daughter needs to be the point guard. She's such a great ball handler, you know. And I said, okay, we'll go 5-on-5. You got her. I get Abby, this little bitty girl. We'll go from there. And I told Abby, I said, don't let her cross half court. First 10 possessions, she's picked layup, picked layup, picked layup. And a lot of these kids in the program I was in at NOAA at the time were going to one guy, and everything he did training wise looked really good.
Didn't translate.
Didn't translate because he never did a one-on-one. Never did never simulated game situations. So I say that to say this. I've used that always as an example. Find a guy that's going to translate to, game-like situations. And, kids want to – I think a lot of trainers make the mistake from guys I've seen that try to make the jazzy, we got the saucy moves and all this stuff, and it looks great. It doesn't translate to basketball.
It doesn't.
So what do you look for as a trainer? You're giving me advice. You're giving these parents advice that are listening to us tonight. What do you look for as a trainer to make my kid better?
I think I always look at and try to identify their strengths and their weaknesses. I like to watch and see them play, what they need to work on, and be able to maximize that. This is what you can't discredit. And I'll say this about teams, and I say this about training. If you're not on a team, like to say the person you're talking about wasn't good enough to play, this PWP wasn't good enough, and he gets on another team, right, that maybe doesn't have the caliber players, you have to find somewhere to train where you're able to train with those elite guys. I say this all the time. It makes a huge difference, and this is what parents, and this right here is I feel like is one of the most important things, and I think I told this comment before. The one thing that we discredit, that we don't look at, is the amount of practices and training that you're able to put in. Let me give you this example. Bryce going to Booker T. Bryce could have went to any school. Everybody wanted to go. The one thing that I knew at the time with him going to Booker T, I knew he was going to be challenged, and I knew I couldn't put a price on the guys he was going to go get against every single day in practice.
Yeah.
They add up.
Yeah.
So just take an AAU season. Let's just say, halftime AAU go year-round for young kids, but in high school, you take a 3-4 month period. You always discredit the time that you have to practice against guys. So as a trainer, I always try to get guys to be able to go with guys who are at that elite level. I mean, you can't slow the drill up.
And then sometimes let a guy sprinkle in.
Let him be able to see how he comes off a screen, how hard he works. The other part is you want kids to be able to see, guess what? Bryce misses shots too. Trey misses, because we live in a world now that all the guys, the great players they look at, they don't sit and watch games. All they watch is highlight films. And nobody missed a shot on the mixtape.
Sports Center.
That's all they watch.
Nobody missed a shot on Sports Center.
so I was.
It's like when you watch a golf tournament. We're going to hole 10, and the guy's got a 30-footer. They ain't showing it because my kids are like, "How'd you know it was going in?" I go, "Because they ain't showing it."
Yes, and I always say this. I was speaking to a group of players, and I said, "Listen, what do you think you have to shoot from 3 to be a good shooter?" And somebody said 40%. I said, "How many is that out of 10?" It was like 4. I said, "Yeah." I say, now, it's different when you have defense out there. It is different. But if you look, guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars being able to do that. And so you try to be able to break that down and then be able to get in and simulate going against those guys. The one mistake they make, if their kid is not good enough, oftentimes they're going to get training, and they're training with guys that aren't good enough.
Right. Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. And I do know that is an advantage that I've had. I've been able to get guys in that are unbelievable, that understand. Now, it has to work for both ways. I always talk about Shake. Shake wouldn't care who was at training. If it was a fifth grader in there, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm good, coach. Let's go." He's in there with the fifth grader. And so the one thing you try to do, that when you have older guys like himself or TU players, even Bryson Trey, you get them to understand that they have to be examples for those kids that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So you are the example. They are watching you. How hard do you go? How hard do you compete? And now everybody is benefiting. Now they're taking the role on trying to show, I mean, think about it. We all played like yeah, we couldn't physically do it when we got older, but boy, we became a lot smarter players. At the end of our playing careers, we would we would maneuver and use different stuff that we didn't use when we could just run and jump. And so I think the biggest part that when you're looking for a trainer, they have to be able to work on the things that are going to help you translate into the game. And that's why I say, go watch a game. Go watch. Find out who your best player is that ever played at your high school and see what he did well. That's what you don't have. You got everybody doing everything else and doing this. It's like you are going to training, so hopefully it can translate to the game. And so when you it's no different than guys going to college and you realize now you're going against the length, the athleticism and all. But you have kids like yourself who are not good enough to be on the main team. Oftentimes they're going to go to a school where they're not going to be challenged to be able to play. You know, and you have another kid that's able to get in those situations, and that whole school year. Look at Jalen Breath. Jalen Breath.
No doubt.
He came to Booker T. He was averaging 4 points a game. He could play, but guess what? He had to go against Seth Hurd every single day.
That first month, I thought his chest was going to cave in from all
yes. He didn't know. And so then when you look at him and you look at that kid now, and you look at his body, and I always say, you got to have guys that can see the potential.
Right.
But it's hard with training sometimes because some people want to see the potential because why? You're writing the check.
Right.
So it's a balance, but you take that kid right there, and you see his improvement, not because he played for me. Yeah, it helped because he was going against elite guys and he was able to play and had the training and was getting it in school. I said, you look at that kid now when he walked in. Now, he's going to University of Radford, which he may be going to UNC Greensboro now because he got a job. But if you saw that kid at 9th grade, you knew he had a great frame and he had a chance because he was tall. But you probably wouldn't have said, you saw him run and do, you probably wouldn't have said he would be able to go to that level. But he continued to get better, and he got where. Listen, he wasn't the best. He wasn't the best player on any team he was on.
Ever.
Think about that.
Ever.
And so you have to be able to.
I had lunch. I had him over for dinner. We're at Big City. You're going to love this story, and he was telling me about leap year. And he was playing. He goes, we got a lot of great players. He goes, Coach, I'm not starting. And he said, we got some good players on the team. I said, I know, but that doesn't. You're a D1 player.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You're a D1 player.
And so when you look at identifying a trainer, you want to have somebody that knows and understands that and is really going to break down where you are, your strengths and weaknesses, what you need to work on. And that's why I always say, I call the wraparound program. I always want the AAU coaches and trainer in high school to hopefully work together. Right. But you don't have that now because the AAU coach is saying the high school coach don't know what he's doing.
Because it makes him look better.
Yes, and so then you have AAU programs like I'm saying, like we never did anything to conflict with what was going on in high school. That was high school time. But now you have AAU program. Look, they doing full-fledged workouts and tryouts
during the regional
tryouts during the regional tournament.
Yeah.
That's not working together. So how can I really get Johnny to the place he needs to be? Because guess what? Coach may see something that I don't see.
Right.
He may see something I don't see, but let's be able to work together to say, what can we do as a group to make sure that this kid maximizes his potential and be able to do it? So kind of to answer that question, you have to be able to identify a path, understand what it is, be able to see it before. The guys that are able to say, hey, man, I think he's that level, probably because they've seen it before. They know what it looks like. And to be able to identify that and to be able to maximize that, but to be able to have a support system around them that's going to be honest, going to tell them where they are, and allow them to be able to work. That is the clearest path to success you got. But listen, everybody trains now, and it don't matter. Just tell. Look, I told a guy this the other day, and I told him this. I said, because he would come to me, and you know, he was struggling with his shot, and I said, listen, do this. Either go train with that person or come train with me. I said, because you're hearing 150 different voices. Right. You're struggling with your shot, and I'm not saying what that guy is saying is wrong. What I'm saying is right. You hear 150 different voices. I told another parent, I said, listen, quit letting your kid work out with everybody. But he did it because we all love for people to say great things about our kid. Oh, you great. You know, you good. I said, listen, you're not going to sit into any doctor. I said, if your kid needs surgery, you're going to call me and say, who the best knee guy, Rod? You ain't going to send him to 4 or 5. That is your most prized possession. And you have to be careful of what they're putting in. And I told this, I told this guy, and I said, that's why you have to be calculated about what you are doing when it comes to that. We will be very calculated. Hey, listen. If Kurt Jr. said, I want to be a doctor, you're going to call up every single doctor. You're going to tell him these are classes you're going to have to take. This is how long you have to go be in school. Hey, you better start showing up that chemistry. You got to stay on that. These are classes you got to get into. Hey, let's check with the counselor. Hey, I got some doctor buddies that, you know, work. And hey, maybe we can get you with a guy and you can go shadow him at a young age.
Right.
And see, this is what I always say. It's hard to become a doctor too. But why do when somebody say, hey, we want to go to the NBA, it's so hard and so far-fetched? Oh, go to the NBA. I mean, somebody got to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, having the same approach when it comes to athletics as we do. Why is it such a bad, and I know I'm getting off on something else. Why is it such a bad thing to spend the same time and same energy in wanting to become something athletically just like you do anything else? I'm not saying you neglect the other part. But like I say, I want the best of both. I'll tell this. I'll tell this story right here. This is a good story. You don't know this story. I haven't told you this. Somebody asked me one time. I was on the radio and they said, "Do you think Bryce and Trey could arguably be the best backcourt that played together?" I said, as far as high school, I said I could argue that. Oh, well, you think so? I said, yeah, because most kids won't do that. Most kids won't play together.
That's right.
Most good players won't play together.
Yeah. I made that same argument on Twitter when they signed.
You know what I'm saying? Like most kids won't play. No, I ain't going over there. And even when Conley was up for the job, people, oh, you don't want him to bring trouble there. You're going to take all Bryce's shine. He's going to make it all about him. Well, the one thing that I was new, I said, I want both. I want to win at a high level, and I want to. You can do both. I don't want to just go score 40 and can't compete, and we were forced enough to play on CBS. That's not happening if he's not there. Right. That's not happening if you don't have other good players. And this is what parents don't realize. You're at a point, the place that you're trying to go is going to have other good players.
Well, and I'll just add this to, because on our podcast, I give Conley a hard time because I was his assistant. And I got a hard time every once in a while. I'm going to tell you the best thing he did as a coach, and he's always done as a coach, and I think it was really a tribute to his dad, probably even, but every day in practice, our good was on good. Bryce was against Trey. Seth was against Jalen. Cam was against IJ. And then they would intermix those kids. And it was really important for them. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is those guys have to have time against each other to push each other to be good. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant used to talk about they're the first two guys in the gym when they got to OKC. And those two guys pushed each other to be great because they always want to have a leg up against each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing. I think parents want to shy away from that way too much. And you need to find ways to make your kids competitive.
Yes. And it's different if your kid is in a place where they're not able to play.
Right.
Where they're not because it's not about the minutes, it's how you're able to play the minutes.
Right.
So you do what you're able to do. So you have to be able to identify that. But think about it. In the NBA, that's all you see is guys trying to team up, to go and that's what you. But when you get at this level, now I'm not saying you go get on a team if you're not playing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you want to be in a situation where you want to compete, and if you're getting training, if you're not doing one-on-one, you want to be able to go against other good guys. You want to be able to see that speed, understand that speed, work against that speed, and understand that how hard, if these guys are this much better and they're working this much harder, you're in big trouble. Most people don't see that until it's too late, till you get to the finish line. Now it's too late. I mean, like, and Colin can tell you this, his kids that you can watch play that I've sit down and talked to parents, said, hey, you need to do this, and this, and then to get to that point, I had a kid, this is another story, I had a kid, ended up going to a school, high school. The AAU coach sent him to this high school because he was sitting all the. First of all, the kid was a football player. He was probably a high-level football player. Never wanted to play. Well, he was young and he could score, he could dunk. Oh man, everybody put him on Twitter dunking, and he was an inside guy, but he was only 6'2". And so, I knew his parents. I knew his dad. His dad went to school with some of my relatives, and so he's gonna come and start shooting, And his AAU coach told him, "No, we do the same thing they do. You don't need to go down there and do no shooting. You don't need to go down and do. We do the same thing. We do the same thing he do. And I wasn't gonna beg anybody to come, and so the kid was gonna come, but I never heard back from him, right? And I didn't say anything. And so fast forward 2.5 years later, dad comes like, man, I need you to work on this shot. I need you to get this shot. And I said, it's too late.
Too late now.
Yeah. I said, you finna spend a lot of money, and it ain't gonna. You should have went, and the AAU team was gone, and you get to that point where you could tell it's too late. And so for the people who have times, I always say you have windows. You have these windows. You have, if you're in 7th grade, you have your 7th grade season, 7th grade AAU, 8th grade season, 8th grade. You have these windows that you go in, and in the middle are all these different windows until you get to the finish line. You have to make sure that you're improving on each and one of these windows, that when you get to the finish line, hopefully you passed a bunch of people who didn't put in the work or get better at it,
Or put in bad work.
Yes, you put in bad work.
Which can be done.
Yes.
It can be done,
okay.
for sure.
And I've kind of hogged all the conversation here, but I do want to address one more thing that we talked about, and then Conley, you can add to this. But the role of the J-dashes of the world, and the importance of that in recruiting, and what's good about it, what's wrong about it.
Let me take this, because I've told Kurt this. Of all the great things that I've seen you do, okay, which has been many. You and I talk about the plan. I had a plan. How I thought if Trey wanted to be a player, I could get him there. You had a plan on how you could get Bryce there, and then you took Trey under your wing, but I think one of the neatest things I've ever seen you do is that when we were playing, there were 2 cameras there, and they were in the locker room, and guys got used to being in front of the camera. They embraced it and showcased our program, showcased all our players, and it's not anything that I would have ever thought about branding our players and Booker T basketball, and it was phenomenal stuff. And J Dash was there, and of course the legend was there. Sam,
yeah.
And it's just it was phenomenal what we were able to showcase our guys in our program, and with that video, and I just genius is what it was.
And the kids won't appreciate it until they get to be our age.
Yeah.
I mean, think what you would do to go back and get every moment you had, and Ray
They'd be destroying mine, boy.
Yeah.
That'd be burned.
That'd be a short reel.
Yeah.
Ray Young called me, and so just putting together a documentary with Bryce and a book called Raising McDonald's. So I'm getting it you gotta get copyrighted because McDonald's is on and all that kind of stuff. But Ray called me. He said, "Man, that's one of the most genius." He said, "I wish I would have did that with Trey. You know, just having the difference is this: that when you're able, one, to capture those moments, you can't put a price on memories.
Right.
You know, I love cars. People will pay a lot of money for
that
cars.
SS you rolled up in. Now I'm going to tell you.
People pay a lot of money for cars just for the smell that they have that reminds them of being in it with their dad, with their older cousin. You can't put a price on those memories that you have, that you're able to see, that you're able to relive. But the difference is from the basketball side. The great part about it is you can get to know somebody, you get to capture moments. Johnny Dash will be the first to tell you, you know, I'm real strategic on what is put out, because I do know that narratives and perception is important. When it comes to basketball, and Johnny has done a great job of doing this, every video that I put out, I went through a fine-tooth comb, because I just didn't want it to appeal to the average Twitter follower. I wanted to appeal because the main goal was to the coaches.
Right.
So I wanted them to be able to see every aspect of the game, not just the cool music or the dunk, but guys, basketball guys, that when they look at it, something stood out. The difference is that nowadays, and it's made coaches' job harder, is because every highlight tape, you can make it look like a guy's unbelievable.
Oh, there's no doubt.
You know, and that's why you have coaches, and I tell parents now, you know, have a full game tape. Don't be, listen, everybody, and it shows what I mean when I say, like, nobody missed a shot on the highlight tape. You have parents that are scared to send tapes in because a kid missed shots. Like, everybody missed shots.
Yeah.
But when you don't see it, you know, I gave this example. Like, I remember when Kay Cunningham was in high school, and he played a game, and I guess he had like 7, 8 points. And I had guys saying, "Oh, man, 6, 7, 8 points." I'm like, fool LeBron James. You see, he's had some games where he had, you know, but this is what you get into. I think it's so important. I think that coaches are wise enough to see through it now. You have to have substance with that, but I think I almost think it's mandatory, because I know
it's mandatory at what level? It's
mandatory. I think at every at younger age you're working on you know,
and by trajectory of where you want to play.
Yes, like now.
Like, I mean, Cleveland's got a good team. They got some good players. I don't know that they've got a Division II player. I mean, they might have.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they've got they don't have a Division I player on their team.
Yeah.
So do you need to have Dash going to Cleveland? My concern is that you're going to – now, Dash is like, pay me, I'll go.
Yeah. if you want memories, yes.
Gotcha.
Two different things, memories and you can have the memories, but having it for guys that needed to be able to go. The difference is this, and I know this from experience. So when you know, an AU program, and I get a kid from Louisiana, Texas that called me, the first thing I say, send me something, or can I look at something? You know, because I'm not there to be able to see them play. Now, eventually that video or something may be the thing that gets them to come in to be able to allow me to really evaluate them. Great example. Bryce plays in Texas. We play Team Rio. They have 2 McDonald's All-Americans. Bryce has a good game. North Carolina kind of gets on his radar after the game. Says, hey, you need to work on this, and this, right? I say, great. The next thing, I think it was Johnny Dash video. We're playing Sepulpa. Bryce goes through, and when he dunks on the guy, right? Mm-hmm. Immediately, that goes up. Johnny Dash pushed that up. That goes up. Immediately, I get a call from North Carolina and say, yeah, we think he's turned the corner. We want him. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Because they don't see that.
But it's also not out of context of what the plan is, and taking the advice of what they heard and putting it,
yes,
and Bryce putting in the work. Because I remember, you know, there's a point in time, a sophomore year, you know, he could dunk it,
but it wasn't. Yeah,
and that's something that I think coaches obviously look at because it's a predictor of athleticism.
Yes,
but I mean, I'm telling you, from that point in time, end of his sophomore year, he tried to dunk it every time he had a chance to dunk it in practice, and he didn't always do it.
Yeah,
but he tried.
every time.
And that got him to that point.
And that video, okay, his play earlier got him there, but that video pushed him over the top.
Right.
Now, because they couldn't come, they wasn't at the game at Sepulveda. So I do think it's vital. I do think you can also use it as a learning tool. Like if I'm working on Bryce and we're talking about a shot, I go back to the videos that we have of him shooting the ball, playing, at Booker T. This is how you did it. This is how we lined up. And so also it's a teaching tool that you're able to have. Mm-hmm. Then you're able to go back and also use it as growth. Remember when you were here? Remember when you laid it up and now you're dunking it. Now you get to the next step. So now if you have a step you need to get to, guess what? You've done that before. Now I can visually show you that you've done it. Remember the story? It goes back to visual. When I pulled Ricky up there and I said, who eat honey buns? It was visual. They saw it. So when they saw it, they can relate to it more. And so I do think it's valuable. I do think it's important. I do think some guys are fooling themselves thinking that because coach is watching some of their videos and like it's getting kids. It can, but I think you have to do it in the right context. You have to, and Johnny Dash will tell you, I used to always tell him, like, listen, yeah, we want it to be cool. You want it, hey, get followers and all you want. But the main goal is to make sure that we're in a situation that the coach is able to watch it and he say, hey, I want to know more about that kid. Right. I want to know. Like I had one coach tell me, man, yeah, I love the game, but I watched when Johnny wasn't in the game, and they panned over to the coach and everything. He was still engaged and he was cheering and happy. Little bitty stuff like that. But it is, and I will say I was kind of ahead of that. I mean, we started we started that early before anybody was going and doing that. Right. I mean, we were the only one. I mean,
look over. There's a camera
everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And you have those memories to be able to do. But again, it's part of the plan and the goal to try to get kids where they want to get to, and I mean,
it's a big part of Rod's plan, and for our guys at Booker T had a big impact for sure, for our fans and everything else. It's a great tool.
Okay, what other questions we want to answer for the AAU? We've been here a long time. We've been approaching an hour and a half.
Well, I'll say this. I think, as my dad used to tell me when I started coaching, and when we talk about coaching, he would say, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Mm-hmm. Right. There's, you can pull, every guy's story is not the same. Right. And you asked a question about, well, can you start when you're 10 or 12 and be a great player? The consensus is probably not. Are there guys that have done it? Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the best players I ever coached at Cleveland, arguably the best player, he wrestled till the 8th grade. He didn't shoot a basketball, Billy Tyner, till he was in 8th grade. So when he started shooting, he had no bad habits because he was strong enough to shoot it perfect every time.
You're exactly right.
So there are, there are different ways. Yeah. And obviously, what Rod and I are talking about are basically the path that we've seen Division I players get on early and stay to, and
Well, and I think
wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah, totally agree with it.
Yeah, and I would say just from my experience with my daughter Hannah, I never let her play AAU until the last year before her senior year, mm-hmm. and part of it was I wasn't sure she could get there, mm-hmm. Physically and all that stuff. But one of the cool things I did, I think, it was a good reminder to me, was we were friends with Jonathan Keneally, who was your strength and conditioning coach. A pretty cool thing. He's like predictors of. He gave me athletic testing guidelines and said, if you're a Division I player, your vertical should look like this, your height should be this, your shuttle time should be this, and I use that as okay. She can't get there.
Yeah.
Okay, now she could shoot it, and she could do some things, and she was. I didn't start her early enough on the skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she probably didn't have the height of it, but I think there's a lot of parents in my boat that were either intimidated by it or, just like, man, I got a lot of kids, I can't go. And so there's a lot of reasons and a lot of different ways to look at AAU. You guys have been very successful in what you've done, and I think there's a lot of people that are like me that want to be you.
Yeah.
And you can't change those fortunes. your kids are going to be what they're going to be.
I mean, you going to give up a lot.
Them to be. I mean, I wanted my daughter to be a Division I player. I mean, I brought her up to ORU to play with her kids to say she have a chance. But you know what? I put her out there on the court with their team, and I knew pretty quick. She could hold her own, but she couldn't play at that level. You know, and so I think the couple of things really you got to take the pride out of it.
Oh yeah.
You've got to develop a plan, and I think so many parents are intimidated by the process. They don't know how to start a plan, and they're just like, I got to pay somebody to train them, and I think that's where a lot of the stuff gets derailed.
Yeah, that money goes to the wrong place, and you're.
And it's not that they're bad guys.
No, I'm not saying that.
And I'm not trying to paint a picture that they're bad guys, but it's got to be in conjunction with what your kid wants to do. And sometimes at the smaller school level, which you know, you've got coaches that have a system and they're going to run a system, and they're not worried about the kids. They're not worried about where a kid's going to go play or what they're going to do. They're worried about winning state championships or, you know, and those things. And so hopefully those all align.
And they can do both.
And that's why I said I was fortunate for two reasons. Number one, Bryce was on my high school team,
right.
And number two, Rod was coaching Trey and AAU.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I know how. And Trey and I talk about it. I know how fortunate I am. You know, not a lot of people have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I know we could talk for 4 more.
Yeah, we
hours.
have to do it again.
Absolutely, we may do
part two.
Part two
with Bravado Wireless.
Two.
So thanks for your time, and thanks for imparting wisdom to us.
Man.
Any the timeline on Bryce's decision?
You know, hopefully to be able to, you know, we got a couple other Zooms set up, and hopefully end of the week, early next week.
Well, by my count, he had five calls while we were doing the podcast. I was glancing over. I won't tell you the names of those 5 guys, but it was impressive.
I will tell you this. If anybody's tried to call Rod Thompson, I look over one time, he had 268 unchecked text messages.
Well, you can't leave a message because this mailbox is full.
It's been full for 7 years.
Hey, I'm like that old basketball player. I'm trying to get better, Coach. I'm trying to get better.
Amen. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for blessing us with some good insight.
No
Good
doubt.
stuff.
Appreciate you guys, man.
This podcast is brought to you by Bravado Wireless. We believe in the power of connection.